Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Supervisor Les, for inviting me here to talk really briefly about the history of the naming of Lee District. I've been a librarian with Fairfax County Public Libraries in Virginia Room for the last 6 years, and a year doesn't go by when someone comes to us and asks, whom was Lee District named for?
Right.
So the spoiler is we have no documentation that says who it was named for.
Right.
But last year, Supervisor Gross asked our department to put together a report that goes into the history of the naming and redistricting of Fairfax County's magisterial districts. And I wrote that, and I'm just going to give a real brief presentation about why and the context of how we know the district was named. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. I kind of threw together this PowerPoint to make it a little bit more visually exciting. Can you see that okay?
Yes, that's great.
Excellent. Okay, so following the Civil War, an assembly of delegates known as the Underwood Convention met in Richmond, Virginia from 1867 to 1868 to establish a new state constitution, and that's what you see going on here. The convention approved the new constitution on April 17, 1868, and it was ratified by Virginia voters the following year. The Underwood Constitution required that all Virginia counties establish no less than 3 townships and a board of supervisors as the chief administrative agency. And on April 2nd, 1870, the Virginia General Assembly approved an act to do this and divide the state's counties into townships. Consequently, Virginia Governor Gilbert Walker appointed 5 Fairfax County citizens to do this: O.W. Hunt, John Powell, Walter Powell, Warrington Gillingham, and R.L. Newitt as the commissioners to divide Fairfax County into townships, and they completed this task on April 22nd, 1870. Now, the document you see here in front of you is from the Fairfax County Courthouse. The notary public is saying that those 5 men appeared before him, filing this document that divided the county into 6 townships, and he's basically saying they fulfilled their duties. Those men divided Fairfax County into 6 townships: Centerville, Drainesville, Falls Church, Mount Vernon, Providence, and Lee. And there are no surviving records documenting the name selection process or their discussions, unfortunately. Lee District is down there at the bottom in yellow. So all but Lee District appear to have been named after geographical locations within their districts. So for example, this is speculation, it's not officially documented, but Centerville Township is named for Centerville, the town. Mount Vernon, named after Washington's home. Falls Church, named after the town. Providence, named after the town of Providence, which is today known as the city of Fairfax. It was known as Providence until 1878. And then Drainesville District, likely after the town or Drainesville Tavern, which the tavern is still around. It's owned by the Park Authority, and if you've never been, go check it out. So based on documentation, it's not conclusive as to whom Lee District was named for. The Lee family had a longtime presence in Fairfax County and Virginia prior to the naming of the township. The Lees are one of the earliest families of the area, and there were many members of the Lee family who lived in the county and region before and after Robert E. Lee. And interestingly, Robert E. Lee, by the way, was still alive at the time the county was divided into districts, and he died only several months later. So this is the original document filed at the courthouse that divided the townships. This is the portion here in red up there at the top that describes Lee Township. Again, there's no mention of why it was called Lee Township, and there's not really any clues in the description of the boundaries as to why they might have picked Lee. This is Lee District in 1878, 8 years later. The district itself, interestingly, has kind of shifted over the years. You could see back then Burke and Fairfax Station used to be part of the district. And so this is 8 years after it was redistricted. And there is a Lee living in Lee District. There's an August Lee there that's circled in red there. So next to Lee District was Ravensworth. Ravensworth was an 18th century plantation, which was later owned by the Lee family. And it was located just over the border of Lee District and Falls Church District. So the red line you see there to the left, that's Lee District, and to the right is Falls Church District, and Ravensworth is circled there in red. Now, I've heard there's been speculation that Lee District could possibly be named for William Henry Fitzhugh Lee, who was Robert E. Lee's son, and he also served in the Confederate Army. And it's entirely possible. Again, this is all speculation, but it might not be named after him because he did not inherit Ravensworth until And he didn't live there until 1874, which was 4 years after the naming of Lee District, but you never know, it's entirely possible. This map is from 1878. It shows him living there, and there's another Lee living next door there, Mildred Lee. Now, the history of Lee Township, the name, it gets a little bit interesting 3 years after it was named. On January 16th, 1873, the Virginia General Assembly enforced an act to redivide Fairfax County again into 3, not more than 4 townships, which was to take effect on July 1st, 1873. The act required Governor Walker to appoint 3 male citizens of the county to carry this out, and he selected John Powell, Walter Powell, and John H. Chichester. The 3 men redivided the county into 3 townships named Stonewall, Lee, and Mount Vernon, and had the redivision recorded in the clerk's office of the Fairfax Courthouse on March 1st, 1873, and that's the document that you see here. So there were no longer going to be 6 townships, just 3. They decided to keep Lee as a name and Mount Vernon as a name and add Stonewall. And you can see on the document here, Lee Township is underlined, and they went on to describe the township's new boundaries. So again, unfortunately, there are no surviving records documenting their name selection process or their discussions. Why did they pick Stonewall? I mean, there's no documentation, but the boundaries of that district included Bull Run, where Stonewall Jackson saw some action during the Civil War. Could be possible, but we don't know. There's no documentation again. So 30 days after recording this document, the General Assembly amended their original act of January 16th, 1873, calling for a public vote to be taken on the matter of redivision before these new townships were implemented. So if the county voters approved of the redivision of Stonewall, Lee, and Mount Vernon, those would be implemented and take effect on July 1st, 1874. If they voted against it, this would become void and the 6 original townships would remain. So I could never figure out if the vote was ever carried out. The redividing obviously never happened, and the creation of the 3 townships were never implemented, but it's an interesting little bit of history there. On November 3rd, 1874, Virginia voters ratified amendments to the original 1870 Underwood Constitution, which eliminated these townships, and instead, each county was to be divided in no less than 3 magisterial districts, which is what we have today. So in place of townships, each county would have a supervisor that they would elect, a constable, an overseer of the poor, and 3 magistrates, all of whom would have 2-year terms. So while they were doing this, Fairfax County decided to retain the original names of the 6 townships for the new magisterial districts, and it's been that way, and it was that way. It remained the original 6 districts for 79 years until the county created a 7th district, Mason District, in 1953. And today, as we all know, there are 9 districts. I'm wrapping up here. The earliest answer my coworkers and I have ever been able to find as to whom Lee District was named for was in a newspaper article 66 years after it was named. In 1936, the Lee District Improvement Association held a history paper contest, and they published the 3rd prize winner's essay in the Herndon News Observer on February 27, 1936, and that's what you see here. 7th grader Elsie Sheeds wrote the 3rd prize winning essay, and everything she wrote about the district history is actually surprisingly accurate 85 years later, so she did a great job writing this. She wrote in her introductory paragraph, which you see here, quote, "When the county was organized, one of the 6 units was Lee District, which was named for a famous family of Virginia, the Lees," end quote. So I wish I had more to tell you, but that's all my coworkers and I have ever been able to find out. For those who aren't aware, Fairfax County has twice changed the names of districts. Annandale District was renamed Braddock in 1991, and Centerville District was renamed Hunter Mill in 1992. So that is a brief relating of the history of the district.